We are here this morning in the midst of all the economic, social, and geopolitical changes in Singapore, where East meets West, and many global regional headquarters are based, where cultural knowledge is required to be able to navigate through strong leadership. And we're glad to have Pisitta Vongswasdi here with us, our organization Change Scientists. As you know, APAC Global, aside from practically consulting in change and change management, also look into regional and global researchers. And that's why we have Pisitta. And with her background, been born in Thailand, lived, worked, and studied in Netherlands, UK, Singapore, US, and even living in Germany at this point. And her background in expertise, organization development, and research in many other areas of leadership. Perhaps you can share with us what cultural skills do leaders need to be aware of in running such a global change project?
Yes, thank you very much, Mei Wai, for this really great question. So, I would like to introduce the concept of cultural intelligence when we talk about cultural skills. And this concept is actually introduced by researchers here in Singapore. And there was this one research study where they look into what are the different forms of intelligence that the leaders need to work in a multicultural context. And they look at the form of intelligence being the IQ, the EQ, emotional intelligence, and CQ being this cultural intelligence. And the interesting thing that they found is that the leaders need, of course, to be intelligent in terms of their cognitive ability.
Yes.
They, of course, need to be emotionally intelligent. But what they need the most is actually to be culturally intelligent, especially when they work in a multicultural setting.
Yes, indeed. This is actually the case when we are consulting in change. We see the change consultants that make a difference are the ones who are very sensitive and have CQ. Yes.
So that's a really great point.
Yes.
So maybe I can be a little bit more specific about
Yes.
the type of cultural knowledge that the leaders need to be aware of.
Exactly. And also perhaps an example.
Yeah, of course, I can give you an example. So maybe just a very simple framework, first of all, that the leaders can think about is this difference between high context culture and low context culture. So Mei, we are from a more of a high context culture, which is, countries like Thailand, Singapore, or China.
Yes.
So here when we communicate, it's a little bit more indirect, I would say.
Yes.
So most of the information would come from, nonverbal behavior, the tone that we use. So all of these things that makes the audience need to read a little bit,
Yeah. Read between the lines.
read
Yes.
between the lines, so to say, to
Yes.
understand the key message. And then, of course, we have the low context culture, which is countries like the Netherlands, or Germany, where I'm living now, or the US. So there, the information is communicated directly. What you see is what you get, very face value.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, in managing change across countries, what we want to try to get to is to get to this, what you see is what you get, openness and transparency, because that's a very good uh, sounding board to start off with. And to allow everybody to move towards that requires a safe space.
Absolutely, that's one of the very important components of this communication skill. And let me give you one example specifically, maybe from the culture where I'm from. So, for example, Thai people, we are very concerned about having group consensus when it
Mm.
comes to decision making.
Mm-hmm.
We are also very concerned about making sure that we speak with the correct information.
Mm.
So let's say if I work with American colleagues, one of the recommendations there would be to have them send an agenda well advanced before our meeting, so that your Thai colleagues can familiarize themselves with what's being said, and also in kind of this meeting situation where you want to brainstorm between, let's say American colleagues and Thai colleagues, I would advise the American colleagues to, solicit their voice, or having this kind of open communication with the Thai colleagues in a very direct way. So ask directly what kind of opinion your Thai colleagues have, because we're from a culture where we would not necessarily speak up unless we are invited, or ask questions directly. So these are some other things that I would say leaders should be mindful when they work in a culturally diverse context.
Yes, otherwise they will feel that the meeting experience wasn't so good,
Yeah,
right? Because they didn't get to communicate what they wanted to, and this may be not just due to the CQ, the different cultures, but also in very often it's language as well, the strength of the language.
absolutely, Levi. So
Yes.
the language issue is very important. Now I'm a little bit curious because I've worked, of course, with leaders and kind of trained them individually and how they can also work in a team context. But I know that you have a lot of experience as well working with organizations around the world and help them to implement their organizational change management project. So I wonder, in that kind of situation, how should organizations approach their organizational change management in a different cultural context?
Mm, yes, that's a very good question. But first and foremost, I think I will have to take a step back first so that I can explain that in fact there are many different types of organization types, right? As you're familiar with. There's the large multinationals with systems that are complex and also more sophisticated in their development. And then you would have also regional, uh, large family businesses and SMEs. And then you would have smaller companies, SMEs and startups. Now, in change, um, it differs. The structures make a difference. Say, a large complex multinational would have likely set up a separate function or group of change experts to come in when they are running technology, finance, brand changes that they want to be sustainable, right? And in so doing, they would have also their own preferred methodology that they want run through into the different organizations. And then we're looking at the large family businesses or SMEs, and a hybrid approach exists whereby there's kind of a sense that, oh, I expect you as a functional leader, a HR leader, IT leader, a finance leader, business leader to have that change management skill, but then also be supplemented with change consultants or experts that can come in to help make the project successful. And then small firms used to run more like we need to run on the gut, we need to move fast. And some were not aware of change, but then now there's a lot more awareness. So imagine once you add that lens of culture and it's like everybody's wanting to move into other countries,
Mhm.
that's where there's a gap. of knowledge, and what's required is a live exchange, like what we're doing here today, on updating everybody on what is required. Typically, for example, the large organizations may use local change ambassadors, consultants, and agents to deploy that change. So what makes them stand out typically are the ones that don't just tick box on templates, because then the organization feedback is typically, I don't feel comfortable with what the change guys are doing. But people who really can connect on that also emotional level, the mental level, and also see beneath the surface and have some psychodynamic skills.
That is very intriguing, Mei Wai. Thank you for sharing this important insight.
You're welcome.
So, in summary, when leaders need to work in a very challenging, different cultural context, what they need to be mindful of is, first of all, this concept of cultural intelligence, the difference between the high and low context and how they can communicate effectively in that context, but also for leaders that want to lead their change management project, as you have shared, they also need to think about the sizes and the structures of the organizations and how to approach their change management differently. But also, most importantly, they need these local change agents to help them to thrive in that project. So thank you very much, Mivai, for sharing this important insight.
Thank you.